Power Panel. Tiffany Smiley, former Republican U.S. Senate candidate. Fred Hicks is with us, Democratic strategist. Great to see you both. You know, Fred, when I watch him, look, I don't say this in any other way than to be delicate. It looks like elderly abuse to have him out there. It looks unfair at this point. He's not doing well, and he's not helping his party.
Well, you know, Harris, my take on this is that while Joe Biden, or President Biden, served this country for several decades, I think we're focused on the wrong thing here. And that if we're going to talk about decline and we're going to talk about lapses, I think we need to talk about what happened just about 5 days ago when the current sitting president couldn't determine whether or not Americans and people are entitled to due process and that the Constitution should be abided by. That's the thing that's more concerning to me about someone who's sitting in office right now.
They are getting due process. I don't know how often I have to say this on the show to Democrat guests, but you know what I would suggest to you? That you talk about your own party, because that was the question. And you can deflect all you want, but parsing information over hearing versus due process, which was the conversation with President Trump, which he was right on, by the way, parsing that so that you don't have to talk about Joe Biden doesn't make the fact that he is out there and in some ways getting better press and bigger attention, if you will, than the people that you would hope are paying attention on how to fix your party.
Well, he's out there because President Trump, and Joe Biden was correct about this, and I think Joy is the other person who said it, is that President Trump is fixated on Joe Biden. And the first weeks or so of his first 100 days...
Oh, come on. Only in the sense that he was able to fix the border. Look, I want to give Tiffany a chance to get in here. Because you and I could go back and forth. Tiffany, please.
Well, I mean, this is just a clear example that the Democrats have no leadership. They have no plan. They have no vision for the American people. Democrats gaslit the American people for years, and Joe Biden going out on this tour is now just reinforcing that. They would be smart just to admit and acknowledge their mistake, that they lied to the American people, that our country was headed down a deep, dark path. Because Harris, outside of the D.C. Beltway, it is very clear that the American people understood and knew that our president had mental decline. In fact, it's very much so the reason why President Trump won with the vision to secure our border and bring our economy back. But outside the Beltway, Americans knew that D.C. elitists were propping up a president that was unfit to serve.
So, Fred, who was running the White House? Because clearly we can see now Democrats coming forth. Look at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. As you saw, Axios, a reporter there, get an award because he actually was writing about this. It was a cover-up. And I want to know who was running the country. Do you know?
Listen, what we know is that we had tremendous job growth. We had tremendous economic growth. We know that we were able to undo 4 years of Trumpism and cut the Trump inflation down. Now, that's going to sound like a talking point, right?
But Trump handed 1.4% inflation at the end of his first term.
And then after his first run with tariffs, inflation shot up.
Biden took it up to more than 9%. It's okay if you don't want to answer my questions, but you can't have your own facts. Okay? Well, all right, let's move.
Trump.
Democrats have been bending over backward to appeal to men after losing their support in droves. Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's resurfaced 2018 comments raging against white men, probably not helpful.
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country. We should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men.
Vice President J.D. Vance reacted this way. This isn't just sick. It's actually genocidal language. What a disgrace this person is. Longtime Democratic strategist James Carville went after her for ripping the voting bloc Democrats are trying to get back.
Ilhan Omar says that white men are responsible for most of the deaths in the United States. And that's a smart strategy. And there are people that agree with her. There are people that actually agree with her. And I think these, honestly, I think these people are more trouble than they're worth.
The Democratic Party's favorability has hit new lows. A recent Fox poll shows 41%, just 41% of voters see the party as favorable. Democratic Senator Chris Murphy told the New York Times why he thinks this is happening. Quote, I don't know that anyone was ready for Trump in his second term. I think there was an assumption that Trump 2 would look very much like Trump 1. I think that the broad public has been very dissatisfied with the Democrats' reaction, and that's in part why you see approval ratings for the party in the toilet. Tiffany.
Yeah, look, I never thought I would say this, Harris, but I really do agree with Carville on this one. He knows what he's talking about. And as long, you have to ask the question, like, why are the Democrats continuing to defend Omar? Like, the more she talks, the more people leave the Democrat Party. And, Chris Murphy and Bernie Sanders, they're just fanning the fire. Spare me the lecture on oligarchy from career politicians, multimillionaires, right? Meanwhile, President Trump is out there securing the border for the American people, protecting our communities, getting fentanyl off of our streets. And not only that, but standing up for America on the world stage and bringing an economy back to our country where America is first, where the American people are first. I have said this from the very beginning, but the Democrats would actually be smart to try to find ways to partner with President Trump and deliver some of these results for the American people. It's fascinating to sit back and just watch the Democrat Party sort of crumble before our eyes. I know there was a recent CNN poll, 30% of respondents couldn't even name someone, a leader for the Democrat Party. So it's a fascinating time. And I do agree with Carville. He is spot on.
You mentioned the wealthy or the well-off, we'll say. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders vigorously now defending flying around in private jets for his Fighting Oligarchy tour. Watch.
Free Beacon says Bernie Sanders spent $221,000 on private jets fighting the oligarchy tour paid for by friends of Bernie Sanders. That you've spent millions of dollars in campaign funds on private jet travel over the years. How do you push back on both of those things?
When's the only way you can get around to talk to 30,000 people? Think I'm going to be sitting on a waiting line at United? Waiting, 30,000 people are waiting. That's the only way you can get around. No apologies for that. That's what campaign travel is about. We've done it in the past. We're going to do it in the future. So
if you're United, you just dropped your breakfast on the floor. Oh, my goodness. So he goes after the airlines and he doesn't like to stand in line. Okay, we get it. Politico reports that Sanders is teaming up with a liberal organization, Run for Something, to train progressive Dems candidates. It's almost certain to draw the ire of some Democrats, as Senator Sanders and some of his allies help both Democrats and independents run for office. What's your take on this, Fred?
Okay, so first, I'm not in favor of going after any particular demographic group, whether you're talking about white men, you're talking about women, you're talking about minorities, or anything like that. So let me just state that up front for our viewers. The second point is that both parties, especially in Congress, have a history of extremists on both sides who make comments, and those are not indicative of the party on either side, I don't believe. But that being said, now we talk about Bernie Sanders in this jet. I think it's much ado about nothing. It is a bad look for someone who has his positions, but at the end of the day, if you're moving around and you're giving voice to people, to the masses, and you're trying to reach people and do multiple stops in one day, then people do tend to use private transportation. Again, I understand the optics of it, for sure. But I think the more important thing is that he and AOC are drawing 10, 12,000 people.
So you're comfortable with the far left taking over your party?
I wouldn't say it's the far left. Are you comfortable with the far right taking over your party?
He's a democratic socialist by his own words.
He's not taking over the party. Bernie Sanders doesn't even identify as a Democrat until it's time to run for president. He's an independent.
He's a democratic socialist, and you know he does. All right. Great to see you both. Have a great weekend. And if you're a mom,
Happy
Tiffany,
Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harris.
Absolutely.
Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.